Twisted Metal Season 2 has come to a close with some of the coolest game-to-screen car combat shenanigans, so hop into the gunner seat as we try to point out every single Easter egg reference and tiny little detail you might have missed in this second season of Twisted Metal. Kicking things off, teenage Raven and Kelly are kind of both goth outcast kids like their Twisted Metal Black counterparts, both sporting similar pentagram and Egyptian Ankh necklaces. Raven plays with a tarot card deck, revealing the Tower card, a potential nod to the Calypso Industries Tower, making an appearance and properly named in TM 2012. She also reveals the Death card, which ties in with Raven's story cutscenes from Twisted Metal Black, which eventually led to two jocks inadvertently teasing and drowning Kelly, similar to how Kelly unfortunately drowns in the opening of Season 2. Her face-down body is surrounded by dozens of pool noodles, almost as though the 10 of Swords card was predicting the future. As Raven freaks out, it's a slow zoom in to the Devil Tarot card, looking awfully similar to our boy Calypso later in the series and his video game counterpart, almost as though he has been pulling the strings since the beginning. John Doe trains up on a super fast racing arcade machine, poking fun at some of the original proposed names for Twisted Metal like Urban Assault, Cars and Rockets, and even High-octane before ultimately landing on Twisted Metal. A few notable PlayStation games can be seen like Gran Turismo, Twisted Metal 2, and Driver. As, you know, it's probably great that he's training on Driver, as it was notorious for having a very difficult training tutorial. John Doe is still working his pizza delivery gig in New San Francisco, as this was a suggested idea to have the original Twisted Metal game be a pizza delivery simulator. That is, until David Jaffe, one of the original game developers, or designers I guess, pushed for the more violent car combat idea, ultimately winning out. We learn Raven has a whole bunch of other Ravens running amok just like her. Sure, this was used as a neat way to recast the character from Neve Campbell to Patty Guggenheim, but is definitely a cheeky nod to John Doe's storyline in Twisted Metal Black, as part of that is that he's in a doomsday cult where inexplicably they all look the same. Raven torments John with a little voodoo doll that's wearing his exact outfit from Season 1. This is also a reference to Raven's prize for winning the tournament in Twisted Metal Black. 2 voodoo dolls so that she can enact revenge on the 2 bullies who ended Kelly's life. Sweet Tooth and Stu run across to Big Baby, who's cruising around in a station wagon similar to the Joneses family wagon in Twisted Metal 4. Now, despite Big Baby not actually being a character in the games, I believe that it is instead an obscure reference to an otherwise hidden Easter egg in the Twisted Metal Black sewers level that had a secret room featuring a big old picture of a baby. Sweet Tooth has an updated mask from Season 1, looking closer to his TM 2012 mask. This is because his eye was stabbed in both of them in a very similar fashion, so yeah, this is a clever addition. Big Baby casually mentions the Trash Man, who is basically a Big Baby himself driving around in a garbage truck. This was a character introduced in Twisted Metal 4, a garbage man who, again, like I said, looked like a big old baby. Instead of hunting down the best of the best killers, Stu comes up with the great idea to host their own tournament, so the killers come to them. It's a very short-lived plan, but fans of the franchise should be able to pick this up, that this was the initial setup for Twisted Metal 4, whereas Sweet Tooth was the head of the Twisted Metal tournament instead of Calypso. And some of the drivers of the game are actually teased here, like Orbital and Drag Queen's Hot Rodder. Quiet confronts Mayhem when trying to steal this green little buggy, as fans will recognize this as a live-action version of Grasshopper. Now, I'll admit, I originally thought that Mayhem was going to be Krista Sparks, Calypso's daughter, but no, guess not, so who knows, maybe next season. John is bored as all reading through the whole series of Babysitter Club books, finding a diary with a hand-drawn map. These pictures are nods to various levels from the Twisted Metal Black franchise. The Ferris wheel belonging to the suburbs level, the drive-in being Millennium Drive-In, which later makes an appearance in episode 3, and the sewers a multiplayer map. The ambulance that John steals is a nod to the meat wagon introduced in TM 2012. Ironically, with Kelly in the back, I'm surprised he did not strap some TNT and send her flying. This is because the meat wagon special was a gurney bomber, which basically was that. It was pretty brutal. Both the ambulance and later the Juggernaut, this souped up big rig that was a heavily armored version of Darkseid in TM 2012, have the license plate of Satan Spawn, as this was the license plate of Darkseid in the original Twisted Metal. Calypso's speech announcing the tournament features some of the same verbiage as the original scrolling text in the intro of Twisted Metal 1.
Assassins, mercenaries, vigilantes, joyriders, all are welcome.
Even adding the "Will you drive?", which was the same question proposed to players in the game's manual. And the initial email invite mentioned via the wiki is essentially the letter sent to the various contestants. He reveals longitude and latitude coordinates for where the tournament will start, pointing to Indianapolis, Indiana, aka the crossroads of America. Unfortunately, Twisted Metal games, none of them have an Indianapolis level. We learn Dollface's name is Krista, much like in Twisted Metal Black, and forward, with her being the head of the Dollface clan, one of 4 main factions the player could choose in TM 2012, which in my own personal opinion was lame. Just give me individual drivers. And episode 1 ends with the dolls firing off, an orange fire missile and purple homing missile based on their respective smoke trails, with Quiet launching Roadkill's blood missiles, stopping John in the ambulance. Krista is saddled with a vulture by the name of Creel, which happens to be the name of the craftsman that she worked for in college in the Twisted Metal Black storyline. One day she spilled coffee on some important documents and as a punishment was put in the mask. Both Creels use their power for abuse. Krista's starting vehicle here in the series, or this TV series, is Shrapnel, the blue counterpart to the earlier green Grasshopper. Hanging from her rear view mirror is a stiletto shoe, a nod to how Dollface aka Krista Sparks sabotaged her modeling competition by sawing off their heel so the other models would trip on the catwalk. Mayhem mentions that she had a previous relationship with a guy named Gene, which could be Gene Ruddish, aka the Ladies' Man, appearing in Twisted Metal Head On. Absolute chef's kiss to the turbo button being a green PlayStation-style triangle button, just like the turbo was in the starting games, later changing in Twisted Metal Black, I want to say. The gang runs into some weird, primitive, caveman-like people, and no, there aren't any Flintstone drivers in the franchise. However, the headwear or headgear that they're wearing has these horns that look like it's a nod to Minion's appearance in Twisted Metal Black. We return to the Blackfield Asylum, which was the main starting area for all of the drivers in Twisted Metal Black, along with the slow camera move into the Solidarity Door like the player intros from the same game. We're introduced to this series version of Mr. Grimm, a Grim Reaper-like driver of a motorcycle and sidecar, who has appeared in every single Twisted Metal game. He heads off to the cemetery to grab a few things as we can catch a glimpse of his father, Bud, Captain Grimm's gravestone. Captain Grimm was the name of a driver back in Twisted Metal 4, and the 2001 date was the same year both Twisted Metal Black and Twisted Metal Small Brawl released. The father-husband Daredevil tells me that this is pulling from Grimm's story in TM 2012, as Grimm's father was a famous daredevil who unfortunately perished while trying to perform a massive stunt. The blood on Grimm's helmet here is another homage to his father, whose daredevil jumpsuit and helmet featured a red skull and red coloring. Krista and John take a break to visit the Millennium Drive-In movie theater, a place they frequented as kids, while also being a story level from Twisted Metal Black. We can catch that the now showing movie is Grimm's Dark Trip Back, a cheeky nod to Grimm, escaping Blackfield Asylum, while also being the title of his main story mission in TM 2012. This is a subtle production error I noticed, but the license plate of the car that Krista and Creel pull up to in episode 2 happens to make a cameo at the drive-in junkyard when they're being attacked by Axel. Now, Axel is a badass, one of my fan favorite, or just general fan favorite characters from the games, first appearing in Twisted Metal 2. Heck, his initial screaming visuals are pulling straight from the box art. He's a big old muscly man and is trapped in his wheels. Now, his lore in the games is a little bit all over the place, but this interpretation of the character is mostly pulling from his Twisted Metal head-on version, where he was able to enter and exit his vehicle via the cybernetic enhancements from the one and only Dr. Zemo, the same squirrely little dude that John and Krista mistakenly killed. While trying to fend off Axel, Krista's cheek is grazed with a ricochet, and she is pissed about it, wanting to sew it up instantly, as this is pulling from her obsession with beauty, model counterpart in TM 2012, going ballistic over a small scar on her face after numerous surgeries. The gang heads to Diesel City for some special weapons, the main story mission area in Twisted Metal 2012, full sky-to-ground combat area said to be located just south of Los Angeles, so theoretically, they didn't really have to travel that far to get here. One of the vehicles that they park next to looks like a rundown version of 12-Pack, a new stock car vehicle that was supposed to show up in the Twisted Metal Harbor City game that was unfortunately canceled. When Stu is looking at weapons, Sweet Tooth mentions he wants a Molotov cocktail, which happens to be the special weapon for the character of Yellow Jacket in the original Twisted Metal game. Yellow Jacket's driver, Charlie Kane, is canonically Sweet Tooth's father in some of the lore and is heavily teased at the end of this season. All of the guards are using snipers to keep the peace in Diesel City, as this was a high-powered when accurate, man I cannot pronounce that word, pickup added in TM 2012 that actually allowed for a one-hit kill if the player had the time and patience. When in the party, the drink glasses Quiet and John drink from look like the red potion that Yellow Jacket drinks in his Twisted Metal 1 live-action cut ending. There's also a blue drink that looks like the potion that Scott Campbell, aka Spectre, drinks when becoming a human once again in another one of the Twisted Metal 1 lost endings. There's a whole bunch of regular and special weapons featured throughout this party scene. Drop mines, which were energy weapons used by all vehicles throughout all of the games. This version looks closer to Darkseid's special, specifically its rear special, in TM 2012, dropping 4 separate mines. The Torch Bomb isn't a one-for-one match to the games, but more than likely falls in line with the Twin Scorcher special from Twisted Metal 4, specifically used with a Create a Character car, which fired a duo of missiles that will hunt down the opponents and then set them ablaze on impact. Napalm cones are a signature weapon of Sweet Tooth, essentially a flaming ice cream cone missile, dating all the way back to the original Twisted Metal. I like how the cone is, basically shaped like the top of an ice cream cone, and these laughing cones can later be seen in action in Episode 5. The Spike Bomb has been featured a couple times, less so as Roadkill special in Twisted Metal 3, while looking more familiar with the newcomer to Twisted Metal Black, Junkyard Dog, as his spike launching special technically was called a Death Ball. My guess is that the Super Crush could be interchanged with these Spike Bombs, but with the name alone, I thought that this could be Mr. Slam or Hammerhead special because both, crush things. I mean, in Twisted Metal 2, these little spike balls, similar look, visually fall off of vehicles when they take collision damage. The MIRV, or rather Multiple Independently Targeted Re-Entry Vehicle, is a weapon that was introduced in Twisted Metal 4 that is not actually a special weapon, but just a regular missile pickup weapon. Ghost missiles, which are missiles that are ghosts, excellent homing capability, and the ability to even fly through walls and go through the ground. These were mainly used by the Spectre car, appearing in almost every single game. And of course, the Boomerang Blast, the special weapon of Roadkill in Twisted Metal 2. It is exactly what John Doe mentions. They are rockets that act as a boomerang. The weapon's high-risk, high-reward aspect is dealing double damage to opponents if the boomerang actually hits them on its return journey back. Stu is basically the honorary orgy guy here, which ties back to Hammerhead's cut lost ending from the original Twisted Metal. Hammerhead's final wish is babes, man.
Well, what'll it be?
Done.
Even asks if he's won some sort of contest, alluding to the Twisted Metal tournament.
Oh, this
This is a sex thing? Did I win a contest or something?
Technically, this is supposed to be Mike and Dave instead of Stu, but you can see the connection. Dollface and Sweet Tooth wander up to the crow's nest to open up the special weapons vault, and I couldn't help but think of the 3D platforming concept from Twisted Metal Lost, which was introduced as an extra feature in the Twisted Metal Head-On Extra Twisted Edition. This was only a short demo that allowed for concept art to be picked up while allowing players to get out of their car and explore almost like a GTA game. This was going to be implemented in the canceled Twisted Metal Black sequel, Harbor City, so the more you know. Krista and Sweet Tooth discover that there is a mobile EMP blast weapon. Obviously, both want it for themselves. This was a newly updated 2012 version of the freeze missiles that were commonplace in almost all of the previous games, but in TM 2012, they wanted a more grounded look, swapping out the freeze visuals for the more realistic electromagnetic pulse, a way to knock out any and all electronics. Dollface's vehicle for the tournament turns out to be the ATV, which was Gene Ruddish's vehicle from Twisted Metal Head-On. John Doe's rocking a new spider embroidered vest, a nod to John Doe's Black Widow hand tattoo in Twisted Metal Black. We're introduced to all of the contestants of the Twisted Metal tournament, some new, some old. Axel, Mr. Grimm, and Sweet Tooth we've already covered. However, Mr. Grimm and Sweet Tooth do have a past. In Twisted Metal 4, Captain Grimm's wish is for the two of them to have a sword duel for Sweet Tooth's soul. New contestants that do not actually have video game counterparts are the Knights of Nebraska, cruising around in their 1972 Chevy El Camino, and Frostbite, this Icelandic-looking woman driving her snow squall plow. Death Warrant is another new driver to the franchise. However, technically, Death Warrant has appeared in the games before, being one of the selectable vehicles in TM 2012, a sports car that was essentially one of the fastest vehicles in the game. Junkyard Dog with the driver Billy Ray Stillwell is driving this old tow truck, taking its design from TM 2012, featuring a license plate of Bone Toe. His backstory included him being a happy husband and farmer, only to be caught out in the field as a crop duster spread toxic chemicals over his field. This disfigured him, only to learn that the whole crop dusting fiasco was purposeful, as the pilot and Billy's wife were doing more than touching tips, wanting Billy out of the picture to collect his life insurance money. Billy, obviously full of rage, ended his wife's life and then went on a journey of revenge. Vermin is played by comedian Lisa Gilroy, as her attire and vehicle actually lean closer to the Roach Coach and Google Eyes from Twisted Metal 4 than the look of Vermin or the Vermin van from TM 2012. Chucky Floop is the driver of the Spectre sports car in Twisted Metal Head-On. This was a newer one-and-done character, but driving the Spectre vehicle instantly puts him in the vain, only looks, beauty, and popularity above all category, as that's a shared trait amongst all of Spectre's drivers. He was the 7th caller into a radio station, won the Spectre car, and entered the tournament. Chucky wishes for money, saying that he is not a loser.
I am not a loser!
Here I am. Okay, winner, right? Big time. Not a loser. Winner.
Raven shows up driving the Ford GT Probe from Episode 1, being Raven's new vehicle for the tournament, as this is the TV series version of Shadow. So RIP to anyone who wanted the Shadow hearse to show up. Preacher makes a surprising return as a baby.
What?
Weirdly, this ties in with Twisted Metal Black's lore. Later in the story, we learn that Preacher suffers from schizophrenia. This all makes sense because in the story, it's said that he was up late performing an exorcism on a baby. In doing so, he was able to excise the demon, but it jumped into the Preacher's body, forcing him to eliminate everyone in the church during the exorcism. When the police arrived, the demon jumped out, just so happened to leave his body, as the police witnessed the horrifying scene, landing him a one-way ticket to Blackfield Asylum. So you can see how they took this possession and baby lore and twisted, pun intended, it into this live-action interpretation. The actual drivers are Deacon and another holy man, as they drive Preacher's car, Brimstone. featuring the brimstone license plate and even the stained glass windows. However, this is a PT Cruiser rather than a 1964 Chevy El Camino from Twisted Metal Black. And lastly, we have Mike returning from Season 1, teamed up with Dave as they are the drivers of Hammerhead in the original Twisted Metal, and Mike and Stu were the drivers in the second game. Unfortunately, the monster truck is replaced with a driver's ed car. The license plate reads Learn to Drive, with a Distance Pistons driving school name on the car's top display, likely a reference to Sean Diston, the writer of this episode and a few others. Calypso eclipses the sun and turns the sky into a bloodish red hue, like Twisted Metal 2, as Rob Zombie's Dragula kicks in and everyone gets buck wild. Based on all of the comments from my Season 1 video, most fans were waiting for this needle drop, as Rob Zombie was a guest driver in Twisted Metal 4, with Dragula being a mainstay on its soundtrack, and then featured the song's music video for winning the tournament as Rob Zombie. Death Warrant says, "Let's rock," right as the action kicks off, and fans will recognize this same "Let's rock" from the silent film style of the intro in Twisted Metal 4. During the action, Grimm uses his scythe to redirect some of the missiles. Grimm was equipped with this special weapon in Twisted Metal Black, and unfortunately never returning after that game. Some of the drivers use a 12-gauge shotgun as a sidearm, a newly introduced weapon and weapon class in TM 2012. The big ol' missiles that drop from the sky and eliminate the drivers may be a bevy of different weapons from the games, but with Calypso behind it, it's gotta be his nuke special weapon from Twisted Metal 4, and then later in an updated version of that in the new nuke mode introduced in TM 2012. The health bars on all of the packages go from green to yellow to red when receiving damage, which is like the driver's vehicles in the game with their health bars, that exact same sequence. Calypso is wearing a similar drifter outfit that we can see him wearing in the very rare Twisted Metal 2 comic, mixed with his different look in Twisted Metal Black. As Calypso wanders into the unknown, John notices Calypso's billboard graffiti is now finished. Calypso is real, sporting a similar font style as Calypso's name in the very first duel arena level in the original Twisted Metal. This initial qualifying match taking place on an airstrip is a sick nod to the ending of Dollface's story in TM 2012, where she wishes to be on the world's largest runway, which turns out to be an airplane runway, and gets smooshed by the plane's landing gear while wearing a similar leather-ish jumpsuit outfit. Krista shoots her package and a game over is heard. This is like all of the screens of you losing when the player character's vehicle explodes in the games. The high school that they reside in is a very loose reference, I'll admit that, to the high school featured in the Sun Springs, California suburban level in TM 2012. However, here it is called the Jaffe Campbell High School, both names being nods to original Twisted Metal game director and designer David Jaffe, who worked on several of the sequels, later creating the God of War franchise, and Scott Campbell, co-founder of the Twisted Metal series, later working on several of the sequels. Now, Spectre's driver in the original Twisted Metal game is also named after Campbell. There's a subtle joke during Sweet Tooth's doctor exam. He mentions his car is named Sweet Tooth along with his name being Sweet Tooth, as many of the fans and promo material adopted this naming designation despite Sweet Tooth's real name being Needles or Marcus Kane. Earlier, Sweet Tooth states his pillow fort password is
Mecca like a high mecca honey ho.
which is a strange reference to Zombie, the blue-faced genie who lives in a jeweled box from Pee-wee's Playhouse, as young Marcus Kane probably was shooting his TV show around the same time that Pee-wee was on air. And of course, the obvious wish-granting similarities between Zombie and Calypso. Not necessarily a Twisted Metal reference, but Stu gives us his best Jesse Pinkman impression.
Yeah, science!
Calypso's red eyes when being devious, or, when he has really dry eyes, is a nod to the character's interpretation in TM 2012 when using his devilish magic for wishes. The first official round involves each driver acquiring a beacon and driving to a finish line, as Calypso announces, Warehouse District Warfare, being the name of the second level in the original Twisted Metal game. Heck, there's even these little jump ramps in that level, of which Mr. Grimm uses at the end of the round. Since John and Quiet finished last in the qualifying round, they are given a radar or simply a GPS showing each beacon, which in every of the games, the player is given a radar on their HUD, providing the location of opponents and other objectives. There's a 5-way standoff for one of the beacons at the ice rink. Now this location is a loose reference to the skating rinks in the River Park Rumble level from TM1, causing your vehicle to be all slippy sliding around on the ice, along with the skating rinks on the Metro Square maps from TM 2012. Calypso takes in the preacher baby as his own because the other holy men exploded, as he's probably going to use this baby as his protege like Yellow Jacket from Twisted Metal Black, and Calypso taking that child as his successor. Mayhem steals Chucky Flop's Spectre-mobile and learns that there's much more to this car. It is a self-driving autonomous vehicle called Quattro. Essentially, this is Twisted Metal's version of 2001: A Space Odyssey's HAL 9000 red light robotic voice, who is voiced by Jimmy Simpson. Shout out Jimmy! Anyway, Quattro was a robotic bounty hunter character introduced in Twisted Metal 4, while his vehicle was the Xeon hoverbike, referenced by Spectre's license plate. It's pretty clever for Quattro to be an Audi as well, as Quattro is the name of Audi's intelligent all-wheel drive system. Mayhem leans out the window wielding a submachine gun, referencing the same low-powered submachine gun sidearm introduced in TM 2012. We get a flashback to Axel's earlier life working as a baker in Old Orleans, Louisiana. A subtle shout out, as a majority of the series was shot in New Orleans, and it being Axel's hometown according to the Twisted Metal 2 manual. However, Axel is really an undercover hitman, receiving a job at 95 River Park Road, being a reference to the original Twisted Metal game's 1995 release date, and the 4th level of the original game being River Park Rumble. Calypso surprises everyone with a bonus round featuring cyborg-looking crash test dummy assassins, referring to them as the Apocalypse 9.
Who?
Deep cut Twisted Metal lore here, as these guys were a cut subplot from the original Twisted Metal game, and supposed to be the game's final boss, as they were described as one of the toughest street gangs in Los Angeles. It's said that they had broken out of prison a year before the events of the game, and their main mission was to steal a prototype XJ-39 mind tank, a tank literally controlled by the mind like some sort of apocalyptic Charles Xavier. The tank is the same that is later driven by Minion, as late in development they swapped him out for the final boss. However, a few live-action scenes of these jabronis still actually exist, and how about you decide whether or not cutting them was a good idea.
Oh, get up! I want to now! You are stupid! What are you looking at? Come on. You. Here! Where's Woody? What? Get up! Get up! Get up!
There's also evidence to the theory that John Doe's Doomsday Gang in Twisted Metal Black were in fact this fabled Apocalypse 9, as they sought recognition and domination, and their leader was bald.
Oh, my eyes!
The Apocalypse 9 member given his hook a sensual licking is weirdly a callback to a character from the original Twisted Metal game, Charlie Kane, the driver of Yellow Jacket. It's tough to make out his hook hand from his character bio picture, but if you're playing with Yellow Jacket, switch him into first player mode and that hook is there front and center. When Vermin, Raven, and Quiet are arguing as to how John is not selfish, Vermin mentions he could have wished for a bug body, which strangely enough was the wish of a character back in Twisted Metal 2. Sweet Tooth essentially wanted to be a bug, doing all sorts of bug things. Then Vermin ends an Apocalypse 9 member with a boot to the face, and the camera framing has gotta be a nod to Mr. Grimm's ending scene from Twisted Metal 3. He wished for Calypso's soul. puns, baby. Mayhem comes across a relic of the 90s, a fully functional talk boy, as many will recognize this from Home Alone 2.
Yes. Yes.
This voice-changing toy was originally made as a prop for the movie and later sold as a toy. And I know that like everyone at my school wanted one of these back in the day. Axel then comes in and saves the day, absolutely decimating the Apocalypse 9 members, all set to by the crash test dummies, ironically tying all of this together as they do kinda look like crash test dummies. It's party time as Sweet Tooth wears his same pink suit from Season 1, which was his new character design from Twisted Metal 3. The reason for the redesign is that 989 Studios took over for the Twisted Metal IP for 3 and 4, and instead steered into a more light-hearted tone, hence the more game show clown than killer clown. His outfit of Transylvania chic is, yes, a nod to his Dracula obsession earlier in the season, but weirdly could be the exclusive Transylvania level from Twisted Metal Head-On, the PS2 version. It was exclusive to that game. The Prom is all about the 90s, referencing a handful of 90s classics, like Mike and Dave having matching orange and blue suits that were made famous by the duo of Jim Carrey and Jeff Daniels in 1994's Dumb and Dumber.
What? I love you, man.
Stu's purple suit is attempting to match Mike and Dave's while leaning into the 1995 movie Angus with a similar situation of them claiming the color is plum, not purple.
Purple suit, looking sharp, Stu.
It's plum.
Plum, huh?
It's purple. It's plum.
Quiet's red dress smoke show reveal, and then later Vermin, thinking that she was just a bet between Sweet Tooth and Grimm, is pulling from plot beats, the initial setup, and the stereotypical nerd is now a hottie trope from 1999 She's All That. Mike and Dave dance in a similar fashion as Kid and Play from 1990's House Party, and there's a very familiar, intimate interactions between Vermin and Grimm that mirror those of Jim and Michelle in the original American Pie.
So skeleton. Mama like. Give me that.
What's my name? Say my name, bitch!
Michelle.
The DJ spinning the jams is Club Kid, a London DJ rave-type party boy character added as a driver in Twisted Metal 3, cruising around in a smiley-faced Mini Coupe. We get to see how Sweet Tooth views everyone, including his buddy Harold, who here gets a nice cameo appearance by 90s heartthrob and legend Devon Sawa, who you may recognize from 90s classics like Casper, Wild America, and of course Final Destination. Shifting over to the next round, though, features a colorful Watkins storms all over the sky, as these were violent electrical storms in the Watkins Harbor level in TM 2012, caused by the explosion of a nuclear reactor, while all of the electrical towers look like kind of the lightning weapon locations from Twisted Metal 2 that personally I used to abuse. The initial voiceover from Calypso mirrors the opening voiceover objectives usually announced before the player starts a round in TM 2012.
Please pardon the low visibility, but in the Animal Kingdom, the most elite hunters work in darkness.
To win and advance to the next event, simply destroy all other contestants.
Whereas this free-for-all round with specific targets is a subtle nod to the new Hunted mode in TM 2012, where players only received points for eliminating specific vehicles. During this skirmish, we actually get a front row seat to some of the game's special moves, and this is what I was waiting for. Axel cruises into the mix, setting off his Supernova Shockwave, his initial special move in Twisted Metal 2, basically a blue atomic shockwave emits from him in a small radius, even including the Axel Power!
Axel Power!
Vermin unleashes her green Tox Smog Cloud. This was Goggle Eyes special in Twisted Metal 2, as it was basically a flamethrower type weapon, but with stinky green toxic gas. Raven is the one launching insane specials that seem to be new to the series, or at least her video game character counterpart did not have a massive laser beam of death. This new special looks most similar to RC Car's laser special in Twisted Metal 4, visually that is, but mechanically it works closer to Crazy 8's hidden special, where you can actually select the direction you want to shoot, and it quadruples electrical damage in that direction. It's really cool that she also has to charge up her special in a similar fashion as some of the charged specials in Twisted Metal Black, even having the 5 or so power light indicators. Axel sacrifices himself and has his mechanical hands melted to his vehicle's frame, as he then rolls off into the darkness. Massive tease for him to come back, as him being trapped in his vehicle fits nicely in with his Twisted Metal 2 storyline and more tragic character arc. For burning Sweet Tooth's best friend Harold, Calypso steals the souls and personalities living within Grimm. As the souls are ripped from his body, he mentions a few names that provide video game lore and backstory. Benny was Mr. Grimm's best friend in the Twisted Metal Black storyline. Both had been soldiers during the Vietnam War. Benny was shot, unfortunately, and he and Grimm were captured and trapped in a 50-foot deep hole with no means to escape. Days later, Grimm eventually ate his buddy Benny to survive, and then wore his skull as a reminder of his buddy, hell-bent on revenge. The other two were Zachary, the name of the tin-foiled astronaut in Season 1, along with the Colonel, which could be Colonel Hall from Twisted Metal Head On. He entered the tournament wishing for an ultimate weapon, something that would enable him to easily take out all of the evildoers of the world, which he gets, but unfortunately is shot in his first righteous act.
Bang, 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 you're dead!
Sweet Tooth makes an offhanded comment about a long line of fathers trying to kill their sons, as Sweet Tooth was a family annihilator in his TM 2012 storyline, and jumping ahead a little bit, ties in with his taxi cab end credit scene that I'll dive into a little bit later. In the Omelet line, Grimm threatens to put Sweet Tooth in the ground, a far-reaching wink to how Sweet Tooth's story in TM 2012 tragically ends with him buried in the ground. The final round pays homage to the classics here, as this is a recreation of the original first qualifying match from Twisted Metal 1, the Arena Duel. It has everything: the shipping containers, the circular staging, banners of the other contestants lining the arena, Calypso and his goons watching from a safe area, and even the big Jumbotron showing even more of the carnage.
Move this man!
Usually this level, it's the player vehicle and only one other random competitor. However, after entering the cheat code of square, triangle, circle, square, square, you can unlock this same Arena Duel level, but with 5 other contestants, called the Fight of Your Life, as that's exactly what this is. Calypso doesn't miss a beat, saying there's nothing more special than Christmas, as this is the initial setup text from the original game. Merry Christmas, everyone! Raven pulls out all the stops and messes around with some energy weapons, initially throwing on an overshield, an energy move introduced in Twisted Metal 2. Heck, she even inputs down, down, right, right to activate it, which is similar to the codes used in Twisted Metal Black and Forward, but actually the inputs were reversed. A nice cameo from some drop mines as well. Calypso even calls out cheat codes.
Cheat codes? Pathetic.
John and Quiet being in 2 separate roadkills means co-op mode, but maybe I'm misremembering, because could you actually pick the same vehicle? Maybe in later games, because I think you couldn't in the earlier ones. A new contestant approaches as Calypso announces his final boss, similar to almost all of the Twisted Metal games having a final boss. The container is flown in by a chopper, a very loose reference to Talon, the only flying vehicle in the series, as the final boss is revealed to be...
Minion!
I've casually talked about Minion before, but in the game's lore, he's a demon that was bested by Calypso when driving in hell, and has essentially been on a revenge trip against Calypso ever since that event. This version is the furthest that we've gotten from any of the games, while looking closer to his Twisted Metal 3 appearance, smashed together with Bram Stoker's Dracula armor. It is a bizarre reference here. I mean, you see the similarities. Minion uses hot white mega guns, a cheat code in Twisted Metal 2 that upgraded your traditional machine guns to a better, more powerful version. Flashback to the early 2000s as Calypso pitches Twisted Metal to NBC using the very same font style as the original game's title screen, with a brief look at the Calypso Industries logo, the main corporation at the core of TM 2012. One of the NBC reps refers to him as Mr. Sparks, fitting into the lore that his human name was William Sparks before Calypso. A parody version of the Survivor reality game show tagline can briefly be seen on one of the slides. Calypso suggests Carson Daly, famous TV personality and VJ, would drive the Spectre vehicle from Twisted Metal 3, portraying Lance Wilder. Perfect casting in my opinion, because Wilder's wish was to be famous and on TV all of the time. Wesley Snipes was to be cast as Agent Stone, driver of the red sports car Crimson Fury. The pitch comes to an end teasing Twisted Metal World Tour as the plot of this show and a potential Season 3, even quoting some of the dialogue from Twisted Metal 2's opening.
The world will be a battleground. Just imagine. Hong Kong, Paris.
Oh, the world will be my battleground. Paris, Hong Kong, even Antarctica.
Stu ends up winning this Twisted Metal tournament as Calypso hits Stu with the infamous "Thank you for playing Twisted Metal" that ends most of the games.
Thank you for playing Twisted Metal.
I am Calypso, and I thank you for playing Twisted Metal.
Calypso's trickery, though, when it comes to the winner's wishes, was always a fun monkey's paw situation, as Stu is the winner, wishing for...
I wish to go somewhere safe. Away from all of this. Just me and Mike.
Unfortunately, you can see how Stu's wish can be twisted, again pun intended, as he and Mike are sent to a Calypso Industries space station in the middle of nowhere. I mean, he did technically get his wish. Now in the games, this is never actually Mike or Stu's wish, instead combining Outlaw from the original game, which saw him going into space or being sent into space, and then in Twisted Metal 2 saw Outlaw 2 rescuing her brother and then returning back to Earth. So they kind of sort of took these two, repackaged them up for Mike and Stu. Stu, like I said, clearly was the winner, but almost all of the other drivers received a twist on their wishes as well. Chucky Floop wanted to fly and then was thrown out of a window. This flying wish was actually what Mike and Stu wished for in Twisted Metal 2.
What can I do for you, gentlemen?
We won the game, right? So you gotta give us our prize. Well, we want...
No, dude.
Say demand. Okay. We demand that you give us the ability to fly.
Certainly.
That is so cool.
Congratulations. I have granted your wish. Have a great time in the friendly skies.
Let's go! Wow! Hey, man, this can't be right.
Good thing these first-class tickets are refundable.
Frostbite wanted to feel warm again, getting her face sandpapered off. Raven was driving for Kelly, reinforced via her license plate sporting "For Kelly," as Raven kinda sorta gets her wish as she gets to see Kelly again, but definitely not in the way that she anticipated. Vermin wanted the bugs to take over, as she essentially was squashed like a bug on a windshield. John wanted his sister back, just not as the Minion version of her. Quiet wanted all of the walls to come down, which they did. The walls did come down, but now they are America's Most Wanted. Dave specifically mentions he didn't want to be on the hook and ends up exactly there. And lastly, Grimm doesn't actually wish for anything, but the way that he goes out by losing his powers and then hit by a car is exactly how he goes out in the end of Twisted Metal Head On.
For my prize, I want you to turn someone else into the Dark Collector so I may live a human life.
You're mortal now, Mr. Grimm. The torch has been passed.
I'm free. Thank you, Calypso. I'm free. I'm free.
Yes.
I'm free. The hunger is.
I love these two movie stubs for Muppets from Space and Stuart Little because the dates listed are both opening night, showing how they are definitely huge movie buffs. And weirdly, we're going to a drive-in movie during December. There's also a clear or clever nod to Stu's wish, Stu in space.
What?
We discover not only did Stu make it back from space doing his best Terminator impression.
Come with me if you don't want to die.
Come with me if you want to live.
But also, Krista is in fact Minion. This scenario with a reanimated Krista feels like it's pulling from Sweet Tooth's Twisted Metal 2012 story mission post-credits scene. Wow, that is a lot of words. Revealing Calypso has possessed Sophie Kane, bringing her back to life as his killing puppet. Her weird, modulated scream also sounds similar to the Iron Maiden in TM 2012.
Force shield compromised.
As everything comes to a close with the post-credit scene filling us in on what happened with Sweet Tooth. He's being dragged off to New York, another kick-ass level from Twisted Metal 2, by a taxi cab. The cabbie says he's heard about Sweet Tooth's legacy and his old man wants to see him, as the sign mentions Charlie Kane, Marcus Kane's father. This is taking the storyline and final wish of Yellow Jacket from the original Twisted Metal game, as Charlie Kane in that game drove a New York-style cabbie and enters Calypso's contest to learn what happened to his son, a young man who disappeared 20 years ago, aka Sweet Tooth, aka Marcus Kane. So some really cool, potentially really cool, out there, awesome ideas are in place for the future of Sweet Tooth and a hopeful Season 3. That is everything I could find in Twisted Metal Season 2, all of the Easter eggs, references, and little things you might have missed. This was a girthy video, so if you've made it this far, I really appreciate it. Thank you. Let me know in the comments what some of your favorite parts of this season were, some of your favorite Easter eggs, and what would you like to see in Twisted Metal 3? What are some of your drivers that must be in that season? Give this video a thumbs up and subscribe, as it really helps me out and allows me to make more videos like this. Thanks again, all you Twisted Metal fans. You're the bestest.
I am Calypso, and I thank you for playing Twisted Metal.